A man in a tailored suit grabbed the handles of a woman's wheelchair and started pushing her away from the table on Christmas Eve in front of a room full of people. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Except one man. A single father sitting with his 9-year-old son who stood up and did something that would be replayed 20 million times before New Year's Day. But what he did wasn't what anyone expected. And what happened after that changed everything. But before I tell you how this story ends, comment the city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and follow along. You don't want to miss what comes next. The host's name was Gregory. He'd worked at La Maison for 11 years, prided himself on knowing every regular by name, every wine preference, every anniversary date. He ran the front of house like a general runs a battlefield. Precise, controlled, no surprises. And Gregory did not like surprises. So when Hannah Miller rolled through the front doors at 7:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, 13 minutes before her reservation, Gregory's smile didn't change. But his eyes did. He looked at the wheelchair first, then at her, then back at the wheelchair. "Good evening," Hannah said. She held up her phone showing the confirmation. "Miller, party of one. I have the fireside table." Gregory took the phone, scrolled, read the confirmation twice. Then he looked up and let out a breath that was almost a sigh. "Ms. Miller," he said, lowering his voice, stepping slightly closer than necessary. "I'm afraid there's been a small issue with the seating arrangement." "What kind of issue?" "The fireside table, it's in an area that might be a bit difficult for your situation." Hannah tilted her head. "My situation?" "The spacing between tables is quite narrow there, and the flooring transitions from hardwood to stone. It could be uncomfortable, unsafe even." "I've been in this chair for 3 years, Gregory. I can handle a floor transition." He blinked. She'd read his name tag. Most guests didn't bother. "Of course," he said, his voice still low, still measured. "But I want to ensure you have the best experience. We have a lovely table near the bar, actually. More private, very quiet." "The table near the exit." "It's near the lounge area. It's the table you put people in when you don't want other guests to notice them." Gregory's jaw tightened. Just slightly. Just enough. "Ms. Miller, I assure you, you assured me 2 months ago when I called to confirm the reservation that the fireside table was fully accessible. I asked specifically. Twice. And it is accessible, technically. But tonight with the holiday crowd, things are a bit more Gregory." She said his name the way a teacher says a student's name when the excuse has gone on too long. "Is the table available or isn't it?" He paused. Then he leaned down, not to her eye level, but close enough that no one else could hear, and said the words that would eventually be heard by millions. "I'm sorry, Ms. Miller. This table, it isn't for the disabled." He said it like he was delivering a weather report. No malice in his tone. No cruelty in his expression. Just a fact. As if accessibility were a menu item that had been 86th for the evening. Hannah didn't flinch. She'd been flinched out years ago. But something behind her eyes shifted. A wall going up. The kind you build when the world keeps handing you bricks. "I see," she said. "I can seat you at—" "I heard you." She turned her chair slightly. Not toward the door. Not toward the bar. She just turned. Like she needed a moment to decide which version of herself to be. The restaurant hummed around her. Glasses clinking. A pianist playing something soft and jazzy in the corner. Laughter from a table of 8 near the window. The smell of roasted duck and cinnamon and money. Nobody looked at her. That was the thing about moments like this. They were designed to be invisible. The quiet exclusion. The polite redirect. The smile that said, "We're doing you a favor," while the action said, "You don't belong here." Hannah had a collection of these moments. She kept them the way some people keep scars not on display, but never forgotten. 3 years ago, she'd been Hannah Miller lead architect at Whitfield and Associates. She'd designed a children's hospital in Denver, a library in Portland, a mixed-use development in Austin that won a regional award. Then came the fall. Not dramatic, not cinematic. A wet staircase in a parking garage. Her heel caught the edge, her body twisted. Her spine met concrete at an angle the human body was never meant to meet. 8 hours of surgery, 6 weeks in ICU, 4 months of rehab, and then the rest of her life in a chair. The firm let her go within a year. Restructuring, they called it. Her friends lasted a little longer, maybe 14 months before the invitations stopped. Not all at once. Slowly. The way a faucet drips before the pipe goes dry. First, it was the hiking trips. Understandable. Then the rooftop parties. Then the dinners at restaurants with steps. Then the dinners at restaurants without steps. Then just silence. She'd rebuilt. She always rebuilt. That's what people like Hannah did. They rebuilt because the alternative was to sit still, and sitting still meant drowning. She started her own practice from her living room. Inclusive design, accessible housing, the kind of architecture that didn't treat disability as an afterthought. She wasn't changing the world yet, but she was scratching at it. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. Her first major contract, a 40-unit accessible housing development in North Austin, had been signed 3 days ago. She'd wanted to market, to sit somewhere beautiful and eat something expensive and feel just for one evening like the world hadn't shrunk. And now Gregory was offering her the table by the exit. She could leave. She'd left before. There was dignity in walking away, or rolling away as the case was. She could go home, order Thai food, watch something on Netflix, and tell herself it didn't matter. But it did matter. That was the thing nobody told you about discrimination. It wasn't the big moments that broke you. It was the accumulation, the death by 1,000 polite refusals. "Fine," she said quietly. Gregory straightened up. "Wonderful. Let me show you to—" "I said fine, not wonderful." He paused. "I'll find it myself," she said. And she turned her chair toward the small table near the back hallway, the one with the draft from the kitchen door, the one facing the wall. Gregory watched her go. Then he smoothed his tie, adjusted his smile, and turned to greet the next guests. Christmas Eve continued. 40 feet away at a round table draped in white linen, Ethan Cole was trying to cut his son's steak. "Dad, I can do it." "I know you can do it. I'm just helping." "You're not helping. You're doing it." "That's a kind of helping." "No, it's not." Ethan put the knife down. "Okay. Show me." Sam picked up the knife and fork with the exaggerated precision of a 9-year-old who desperately wants to prove something. He sawed at the filet mignon like he was trying to cut through a phone book. "You gotta let the knife do the work," Ethan said. "The knife isn't doing any work. The knife is broken. The knife is a $100 knife. Then it should work better." Ethan laughed. It was the kind of laugh that surprised him. The kind that still felt new, even 2 years after Laura died. Laura would have handled this better. She would have cut the steak into perfect pieces before Sam even sat down, and she would have done it while making him feel like he'd done it himself. That was her gift. Making people feel capable without them knowing they were being helped. Ethan didn't have that gift. He had stubbornness and good intentions, which, as Laura used to say, was like having a hammer and no nails. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Why is that lady sitting by herself on Christmas?" Ethan looked up. Across the room, Hannah Miller sat at her small table. Her back mostly to the restaurant, reading the menu with the kind of focus that meant she wasn't really reading it at all. "I don't know, buddy." She looked sad. "Maybe she's just thinking." Thinking looks different than sad. Ethan studied his son, 9 years old, and already reading rooms better than most adults. Laura's genes. Had to be. "You might be right," Ethan said. "I am right. And Dad?" "Yeah. I saw what happened." Ethan's hand stopped halfway to his water glass. "What do you mean?" "When she came in, the man at the front, he wouldn't let her sit where she wanted." "How do you know that—" Because she showed him her phone, like when you show your ticket at the movies. And then he said something and she stopped smiling. Ethan set his glass down. And then he moved her to that table. The bad one. The bad one. It's by the door where the waiters come out. And it's small. And she's all alone on Christmas, and she has to sit at the worst table because that man didn't want her at the good one. Sam, why Dad? Ethan didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't know, but because the answer was one of those things you don't want to explain to your kid on Christmas Eve. You want Christmas Eve to be about magic and presents and believing the world is kinder than it actually is. But Laura had a rule. She'd made him promise. Don't lie to him about the world, Ethan. Soften it if you have to, but don't lie. Some people, Ethan said carefully, treat others differently because of things that don't matter. Like what? Like what they look like, or how they move, or what kind of body they have. That's stupid. Yeah, it is. So why do they do it? Because it's easier to keep things the way they've always been than to make room for someone new. Sam thought about this. Then he said, Mom would have done something. And that one sentence from a 9-year-old boy with steak sauce on his chin hit Ethan harder than anything had hit him in 2 years. Because Sam was right. Laura would have done something. She wouldn't have made a speech. She wouldn't have caused a scene. She would have just acted. Quietly. Certainly. The way she did everything. Ethan looked at Hannah again. She was holding her menu with both hands, but her eyes weren't moving across the page. She was staring at one spot. The way you stare when you're trying not to feel something. He knew that stare. He'd perfected it in hospital waiting rooms and funeral homes and parent-teacher conferences where the chair next to him was empty. Dad? Yeah, buddy. Are you gonna do something? Ethan wiped his mouth with the napkin. Folded it. Set it beside his plate. Yeah, he said. I think I am. He pushed his chair back. Stay here, okay? Where are you going? I'm going to talk to that lady. And then what? Ethan paused. I don't know yet. He walked across the restaurant, past the table of 8, past the couple sharing a dessert, past the family with the baby in the high chair, past Gregory, who was seating someone else with the practiced ease of a man who'd already forgotten what he'd said 10 minutes ago. Ethan stopped at Hannah's table. She looked up. Her expression was careful, the kind of careful that comes from years of strangers approaching with either pity or curiosity, and neither one welcome. Hi, Ethan said. Hi. I'm Ethan. I'm having dinner with my son over there. He gestured towards Sam, who waved with a fork still in his hand. He's 9. He's terrible at cutting steak. And he saw what happened when you came in. Hannah's careful expression flickered. What happened when I came in was a seating adjustment. That's what they called it. That's what they always call it. Ethan nodded slowly. Then he said something he hadn't planned to say. Something that came from the same place his grief lived, the honest place, the one he usually kept locked. My wife died 2 years ago. Ovarian cancer. After she passed, people didn't know what to do with me. They'd invite me to things and then uninvite me because it might be awkward. They'd offer the back table, the side room, the quiet corner where nobody had to look at the sad widower and feel uncomfortable. Hannah set her menu down. I'm not comparing my situation to yours, Ethan said quickly. I know it's different, but I know what it feels like to be rearranged so other people don't have to deal with you. For a long moment, Hannah just looked at him. Not with pity, not with gratitude, with recognition. What's your son's name? She asked. Sam. Sam's got good eyes. He gets that from his mom. Hannah almost smiled. Almost. Ethan took a breath. Listen, I have a table. The fireside table. Hannah's eyes narrowed slightly. You have the fireside table. Reserved it 3 months ago. It was supposed to be our big Christmas dinner. Sam's been talking about it for weeks. Then you should enjoy it. I'd enjoy it more if you were sitting at it." The words landed between them like a stone dropped in still water. "Excuse me," Hannah said. "Take our table." "I'm not going to take your table." "You're not taking it. I'm offering it. You reserved it for your son. My son is the one who told me to come over here." Hannah shook her head. "That's very kind, but I don't need." "I know you don't need it. I'm not offering because you need it. I'm offering because that table belongs to whoever has the reservation, and you had the reservation first. You had it before me. You earned it. And some guy in a tie decided to take it away because of a chair with wheels on it." Hannah's hands tightened on the armrests. Not in anger, in the effort of holding something back. "If I take your table," she said, her voice lower now, "then where do you sit?" "Right here," Ethan said. "This is a fine table." "This is the worst table in the restaurant." "I've eaten at worse. My son once convinced me to have Thanksgiving dinner at a gas station Subway. Trust me, this is an upgrade." Something broke through Hannah's composure, a sound that was almost a laugh. Almost. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know you got dressed up on Christmas Eve. I know you made a reservation 2 months in advance. I know you showed up alone, which takes more guts than most people in this room have. And I know that when they told you no, you didn't scream, you didn't cry, you sat down at this lousy table and opened the menu like it didn't matter." He paused. But it mattered. Hannah's jaw tightened. She looked away, toward the fireplace, toward the table that was supposed to be hers. "It mattered," she said quietly. "So let me do this." "Why?" "Because my kid is watching. And I need him to see that Christmas isn't about the table you sit at. It's about what you do when someone tries to take it away from somebody else." Hannah looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "Your wife raised a good man." She'd disagree. She'd say I was a work in progress. "Aren't we all?" Ethan extended his hand. Not to shake, to gesture. "Come on, let's go." Hannah looked at his hand, then at the fireside table, then at Sam, who was now standing on his chair to see better, which was absolutely against the rules, and absolutely what Laura would have let him get away with. "Okay," Hannah said, and she turned her chair toward the center of the room. Gregory saw them coming. His smile froze. His hands went to his tie, the instinctive gesture of a man who knows he's about to have a problem. "Mr. Cole," he said, stepping forward. "Is Everything's fine, Gregory." Ethan pulled out a chair from the fireside table to make room. "Ms. Miller will be sitting here tonight." "I'm not sure It's my table, right? I reserved it." "Yes, but then I'm giving it to her." Gregory looked at Hannah, then at Ethan, then at the room, which was starting to pay attention the way rooms do, slowly at first, then all at once. "Sir, if you'll just let me—" "Gregory." Ethan's voice was calm, not aggressive, not performative, just clear. "If this table isn't for her, then it's not for us either. And I think you know that." The room went quiet. Not silent, the pianist was still playing. The kitchen was still humming, but the conversation stopped. Forks paused midway to mouths, heads turned, eyes locked on the man, the woman, and the host standing between them, like a man caught between a rock and a very public place. Gregory opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Of course," he said, finally stepping aside. "Of course. Ms. Miller, please." Hannah rolled forward, past Gregory, past the empty chairs, past the fireplace where the flames danced against stone. She positioned herself at the table. And Sam, beautiful steak sauce-covered rule-breaking. Sam ran across the restaurant, climbed into the chair across from her, and said, "Hi, I'm Sam. My dad says you're having Christmas with us now." Hannah looked at the boy, then at Ethan, who was still standing, still holding the chair he'd pulled aside, still looking like a man who wasn't entirely sure what he'd just started. "I guess I am," she said. And for the first time that evening, for the first time in longer than she wanted to admit, Hannah Miller smiled. Not the careful smile. Not the polite one. Not the one she wore to make other people comfortable. The real one. The one she thought she'd lost somewhere between the parking garage stairwell and the 3 years of silence that followed. Ethan sat down. The waiter appeared nervous, overly attentive. Menus were distributed. Water was poured. And at the worst table in the restaurant, the one near the kitchen door, the one with the draft, the one they gave to people they wanted to forget, nobody sat at all. It stayed empty for the rest of the night. The waiter's name was Derek, and he was 23 years old, and he had never once in his 14 months at La Maison seen anyone give up the fireside table. He stood at the edge of their table holding 3 menus, 2 for adults and 1 children's menu with a cartoon reindeer on the front, and he couldn't stop looking at Gregory, who was standing at the host stand pretending to study his seating chart like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Can I get you started with drinks?" Derek asked, his voice a full octave higher than normal. "I'll have a glass of the Pinot Noir," Hannah said. "The 2019 Willamette Valley if you have it." Derek blinked. "You know wine." "I know that wine. I helped design the tasting room for that vineyard." Ethan looked at her. "You designed a winery. I designed a lot of things. Before." She caught herself on that word. Before. The word that split her life into 2 halves. "I was an architect." Am. "I am an architect. I just am." The practice looks different now. Sam looked up from his children's menu, where he'd been coloring a reindeer purple. "What's an architect?" "Someone who designs buildings," Hannah said. "Like houses. Like houses, and hospitals, and libraries, and once a really ugly parking garage that I'm not proud of." Sam grinned. "Why was it ugly?" "Because my client wanted it to look like a spaceship, and it turns out spaceships make terrible parking garages." Sam laughed. "The real kind. The kind that comes from the belly and doesn't care who hears it." Ethan watched his son laugh and felt something loosen in his chest. Sam didn't laugh like that often anymore. Not since Laura. He laughed at cartoons and YouTube videos and the dog next door that chased its own tail, but he didn't laugh at people. Not at real live sitting across from him people. That kind of laugh required trust, and Sam didn't hand out trust easily anymore. "And for you, sir?" Derek asked. "Whatever she's having," Ethan said. "She clearly knows more about wine than I do." "My dad drinks beer," Sam announced. "From a can." "Sam, what you do?" Hannah pressed her lips together, fighting a smile. "Nothing wrong with beer from a can." "That's what I tell him," Ethan said. "He doesn't believe me." "Mom said it was embarrassing," Sam said. The table went quiet for a half-second. The way it always did when Sam mentioned Laura, like the air needed a moment to make room for her. "Your mom was right," Ethan said gently. "About most things." "She was right about everything," Sam said, returning to his purple reindeer with the casual certainty of a child who has not yet learned that dead people become complicated. Derek took their drink orders and disappeared. Hannah watched him go, then turned back to Ethan. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "You said that already." "I'm saying it again because I mean it more now that I'm actually sitting here." "Is it that bad?" "No, it's that good. And I don't trust good things easily." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Yeah, I know that feeling." "How long has it been since your wife?" 2 years, 1 month, 18 days. He paused. "I stopped counting the hours about 6 months ago. That felt like progress." "It is progress." "My therapist says the same thing. She charges $200 an hour to say it though, so you're a better deal." Hannah laughed. A real one this time. Not the almost laugh from before. And Ethan realized he hadn't made a woman laugh in 2 years, and the realization hit him in a place he thought had gone numb. "What was her name?" Hannah asked. "Laura. Tell me something about her." Ethan thought about this. People always asked about Laura, but they asked in the past tense. What was she like? What did she do? How did you meet? Nobody ever said, tell me something, like she was a story worth hearing, rather than a fact to be filed away. She used to leave notes, he said, in my lunch, in my coat pockets, in my shoes sometimes. Little folded pieces of paper with things like, you're doing better than you think, or don't forget you're someone's whole world. I found one in my winter coat last December, 6 months after she died. It said, spring is coming, I promise. Hannah didn't say she was sorry. She didn't say that's beautiful. She just sat with it the way you sit with something heavy that someone hands you carefully, quietly, giving it the weight it deserves. She sounds like she paid attention, Hannah said. She paid attention to everything, especially the things people tried to hide. Sam has that too. He does. Scares the hell out of me sometimes. Across the room something was happening, not loudly, not obviously, but the way a current runs through water, invisible until you feel it pulling. 2 women at a nearby table had been watching. She set down her wine glass and didn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, 142, 143, 144, 145, 146, 147, 148, 149, 150, 151, 152, 153, 154, 155, 146, 157, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, 1. She set down her wine glass and didn't pick it up again for a long time. At the table of 8 by the window, a man in his 60s had noticed the exchange. He'd seen Hannah enter. He'd seen Gregory redirect her. He'd done what most people do in those moments, looked away, took a sip of water, told himself it was none of his business. Now he watched her sitting at the fireside table with this stranger and his son, and something that looked a lot like shame settled across his shoulders. Gregory, meanwhile, had retreated to the back office. He stood in front of the desk, staring at the computer screen without seeing it, running his fingers along the edge of his tie. The door opened behind him. What just happened out there? The voice belonged to Margaret Chen, the restaurant's general manager. She was 49 precise and did not tolerate surprises. A guest requested a table change, Gregory said. That's not what I heard. Then what did you hear? I heard you refused to seat a wheelchair user at her reserved table, and a guest gave up his own table in front of half the dining room. Gregory turned. I didn't refuse. I suggested an alternative. You suggested the table by the kitchen. It was more accessible. It's the worst table in the restaurant, and we both know it. Gregory's composure cracked, just a fraction. Margaret, the fireside section has a 2-inch step between the hardwood and the stone. The spacing between tables 4 and 5 is 28 inches. A standard wheelchair is 26 inches wide. That leaves 2 inches of clearance. One wrong move and she clips table 4, sends a $700 bottle of wine onto a guest's lap, and we have a lawsuit. So you told her the table wasn't for disabled people? Gregory went pale. I didn't say that. Derek heard you? Derek is 23 and hears everything wrong. Gregory. He stopped talking. Did you or did you not tell that woman the table wasn't for her? Silence. I was trying to manage the situation. You created the situation. I was protecting the restaurant. You were protecting yourself. There's a difference. Margaret pulled out her phone, opened it, turned it toward Gregory. On the screen was a text from Derek Guest in wheelchair denied fireside table. Another guest gave up his table. Whole room saw it. What do I do? This is a problem, Margaret said. It's Christmas Eve. Everyone will forget by tomorrow. In this restaurant, maybe. On the internet, Gregory, there are 112 people in that dining room. At least half of them have phones. If even one of them posts what they saw tonight, nobody's going to post anything. You want to bet your career on that? Gregory didn't answer. Here's what's going to happen, Margaret said. You're going to go back out there. You're going to apologize to that woman, personally, sincerely, not the corporate version, the human version. And if she doesn't accept, then she doesn't accept, and you've still done the right thing. But you're going to do it, Gregory. Tonight. Before this gets any worse. She left. Gregory stood alone in the office, his reflection staring back at him from the dark computer screen, and for the first time in 11 years at La Maison, he didn't recognize the man looking back. Back at the fireside table, dinner was arriving. Derek set down plates with the careful precision of someone who knows the whole room is watching him. The filet mignon for Ethan. The pan-seared salmon for Hannah. Chicken fingers for Sam, who had rejected every other item on the menu with the ruthless efficiency of a 9-year-old food critic. Can I ask you something? Sam said, looking at Hannah with the kind of directness that only children and very old people can get away with. Sure. What happened to your legs? Sam, Ethan said. We talked about this. You said I should ask people instead of guessing. I said you should ask politely. I said, can I ask you something first? That's polite. Hannah held up her hand. It's okay. Really. She looked at Sam. I fell down some stairs 3 years ago. It hurt my spine. That's the bone that goes up the middle of your back. Sam reached behind himself and touched his own spine. This one. That one. And it broke. Part of it got damaged. The part that sends signals from my brain to my legs. So my brain says walk, but my legs don't get the message. Sam considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. That's like when my dad texts me and it says, not delivered. Hannah stared at him. Then she laughed so hard she had to put her fork down. That is exactly what it's like, she said. Can they fix it? Maybe someday. Some really smart doctors are working on it. My mom's doctor couldn't fix her either, Sam said. Casual, matter of fact. The way children discuss tragedy before the world teaches them to dress it up with euphemisms. Hannah looked at Ethan. He was watching his son with an expression she recognized, the one that meant he was proud and heartbroken at the same time. I'm sorry about your mom, Hannah said to Sam. It's okay. She's not gone. She's just somewhere else. Ethan's hand tightened around his fork. Dad says she's watching, Sam continued. So I try to do good stuff so she has something good to watch, like a show. That's a beautiful way to think about it, Hannah said. Dad doesn't think it's beautiful. Dad cries when I say it. I don't cry. You get the face. What face? The face you're making right now. Ethan put his hand over his eyes and laughed, the kind of laugh that lives right next door to tears and sometimes crosses the fence without asking. Hannah reached across the table and touched his arm, briefly, lightly. The way you touch someone when you want them to know they're not alone, but you don't want to make it a thing. He's extraordinary, she said quietly. He's his mother's son. He's yours too. Ethan looked at her hand on his arm, then at her, then at his son, who had already returned to his chicken fingers with the attention span of a golden retriever at a squirrel convention. Can I ask you something now? Ethan said to Hannah. Fair's fair. Why tonight? Why here alone on Christmas Eve? Hannah picked up her wine glass, swirled it, watched the legs run down the inside of the glass, an old habit from a life that felt like someone else's. I closed a deal this week, my first big one since the accident. 40 units of accessible housing in North Austin. 3 years of pitching, getting rejected, being told the market wasn't there, being told I was too much of a risk. And then someone finally said yes. That's incredible. It's overdue. But yes, it's incredible. And I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to sit somewhere that made me feel like I used to feel, like I mattered, like I'd accomplished something worth marking. And instead you got Gregory. And instead I got Gregory. She took a sip. The thing about being in a wheelchair is that people decide what you can handle before you ever get to prove them wrong. They see the chair first. They see the limitation first. And by the time they get around to seeing you, they've already made up their mind. Is that what happened at your firm? Hannah set her glass down. My firm. My friends. My boyfriend at the time, that's a fun story. 12 days after I got home from the hospital, he sat on the edge of my bed, held my hand, and told me he just couldn't see a future with this version of me. This version. Like I was a software update he didn't want to install. Please tell me you threw something at him. I couldn't reach anything heavy enough, but my physical therapist Dora, she was in the next room. She heard the whole thing. She waited until he left, came in and said, "The trash took itself out. Now let's work on your upper body strength so next time you can throw something." Ethan smiled. I like Dora. Everyone likes Dora. Dora is the reason I can bench press more than most men in this restaurant. Including me. Especially you. Sam looked up. She could totally beat you, Dad. Thank you, Sam. Very supportive. The conversation flowed in a way that surprised all three of them. Not the way conversations usually flow between strangers, careful surface level full of safe questions and safer answers. This was different. This was two people who had been through enough to skip the small talk. Two people who recognized in each other the particular exhaustion of rebuilding a life from the pieces of an old one. Hannah told Ethan about the first time she tried to go grocery shopping after the accident. How the aisles were too narrow. How she couldn't reach the top shelf. How she sat in the parking lot afterward and cried for 20 minutes, not because of the groceries, but because of the 1,000 tiny things she'd never thought about when she could walk. Ethan told Hannah about the first school play after Laura died. How Sam had a non-speaking role as a tree. How all the other kids had two parents in the audience, and Sam had one. And how Ethan had sat there holding the video camera and the flowers and the extra coat and the snack bag, and he'd run out of hands. How he'd looked at the empty seat next to him and thought that's where the other pair of hands was supposed to be. Did you film it? Hannah asked. I got the first 4 minutes. Then I dropped the camera trying to open the snack bag. Did he care? He was a tree. He didn't notice. I mean about the empty seat. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he cared. He didn't say it. But after the show, all the other kids ran to their parents. Both parents and Sam walked over to me and said, "You clapped loud enough for 2 people, Dad." And I knew. He knew. Hannah held his gaze. You clap loud enough, Ethan. Some days I'm not sure. I'm sure. Something passed between them. Not romantic. Not yet. Something older than that. Something that happens when two broken things discover they're broken in complementary ways. The crack in one fitting against the crack in the other, not fixing anything, but making the whole structure steadier. Then Gregory appeared. He stood at the edge of the table like a man approaching a cliff. His tie was slightly loosened. His composure was slightly less composed. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in the 20 minutes since Margaret had spoken to him. Ms. Miller, he said. Hannah looked up. Her expression was neutral, patient. The expression of a woman who had been apologized to by professionals and amateurs alike, and who could tell the difference. I owe you an apology, Gregory said. What I said earlier was wrong. It was inappropriate. It was... He stopped, swallowed, started again. I was concerned about logistics, about spacing, about liability, and I used those concerns to justify something that had no justification. You had a reservation. You had every right to that table. And I took it from you because I made an assumption about what you could and couldn't handle based on something that was none of my business. The room had gone quiet again. Not because everyone was listening, though they were, but because the quality of silence had changed. It was the silence of attention, of people hearing something they needed to hear. Hannah let him stand there for a long moment, not to punish him, but because she needed to decide if the apology was real, or if it was the kind of apology that's really just damage control in a nice suit. Gregory, she said, look at me. He looked at her, not at the wheelchair, at her. Do you understand why it hurt? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Because it wasn't just a table, she said. It was a message that I don't belong where everyone else gets to sit, that my presence is a problem to be managed, that the best I can hope for is a quiet corner where I won't bother anyone. You didn't just move me from one table to another. You told me in front of a room full of people that I was less than. Gregory's eyes were red, whether from emotion or the effort of standing still under the weight of what she was saying, Ethan couldn't tell. I have this conversation every week, Hannah continued, with hotels that put the accessible room next to the ice machine, with theaters that seat me behind a pillar, with restaurants that assume I'll be happy with whatever's left over. And every single time someone explains to me that it's about logistics, about spacing, about my own comfort and safety, and every single time what they really mean is, your body makes us uncomfortable and we don't know where to put you. Gregory said nothing. Your apology, Hannah said. Is it for what you said, or is it because other people saw you say it? The question hung in the air like a blade. Gregory's voice, when it came, was smaller than anyone in the restaurant had ever heard it. Both, he said. And I'm not proud of either reason. Hannah studied him. Then she nodded. Once. Okay, she said. Okay. Okay, I hear your apology. I'm not going to tell you it's fine because it's not, but I hear it. Gregory stood there for another moment like a man who expected to be dismissed but wasn't sure where to go. Then he straightened, adjusted his tie, and said something that nobody expected. Your drinks tonight are on me. Personally, not the restaurant. Me. Gregory, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. It's not enough. I know that too. But it's what I can do right now. He turned and walked back to the host stand. His step was different, not smaller, not defeated, just aware. Like a man who'd suddenly realized the floor he'd been walking on for 11 years wasn't as solid as he thought. Sam, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during the exchange, looked at Hannah and said, He seems sorry. He is sorry, Hannah said. Then why didn't you say it's okay? Hannah looked at the boy, this child who lost his mother and still believed in the fundamental decency of apologies. She wanted to protect that. She wanted to let him live in a world where sorry was always enough. But Laura's rule echoed in her mind even though she'd never met Laura and never would. Don't lie to him about the world. Because sometimes, Hannah said carefully, sorry is real and it's still not enough. Sometimes the hurt is bigger than the apology. And that's okay. You can accept that someone is sorry without pretending it fixed everything. Sam thought about this the way he thought about everything, with his whole body leaning forward, forehead scrunched like he was trying to physically wrestle the idea into a shape he could hold. Like when Tommy Beach broke my Lego spaceship and said sorry, but it was still broken. Exactly like that. I forgave Tommy, though. Did he help you rebuild it? Yeah, it took us like 3 hours. Then he didn't just say sorry, he did something. That's the difference. Sam looked at his dad. Is that true? Ethan nodded. That's true, buddy. So what does the restaurant man have to do? That's up to him, Hannah said, but I'll be watching. Sam accepted this. He picked up a chicken finger, pointed it at Hannah like a tiny breaded sword, and said, I'm watching too. And Hannah, this woman who had spent 3 years learning how to hold everything together, who had mastered the art of composure, the way some people master languages or instruments, felt something crack open inside her. Not break, crack open. The way a seed cracks open. The way something has to split apart before anything new can grow. She picked up her wine glass. Merry Christmas, Sam, she said. Merry Christmas, Hannah. Merry Christmas, Ethan. Ethan raised his glass. Merry Christmas. They clinked. All 3 of them. The boy with his water glass, the man with his wine, and the woman in the wheelchair at the best table in the house. And 40 feet away, the empty table by the kitchen door sat in silence, its single place setting, untouched, its candle flickering against the draft. Nobody would sit there for the rest of the night. Not because it was reserved, because everyone in the room now understood what it meant. The second bottle of wine arrived without anyone ordering it. Derek set it on the table with a small card tucked under the base. Hannah pulled it out, read it, and handed it to Ethan without a word. The card said, from the couple at table 12. Merry Christmas. You deserve the best seat in the house. Ethan looked across the room. A man and woman in their 60s raised their glasses. The woman had tears in her eyes. The man nodded the kind of nod that men of a certain generation give when they want to say something meaningful, but don't have the vocabulary for it. Do you know them? Ethan asked. Never seen them before, Hannah said. People don't usually send strangers bottles of wine. People don't usually give strangers their table either. Ethan conceded the point. Sam had moved on from his chicken fingers and was now working on the dessert menu with the focus of a general planning a military campaign. Dad, what's a crème brûlée? Fancy pudding. Is it good? It's incredible. Then why didn't you just say incredible pudding? Because the French got to it first. The French get to everything first. Hannah laughed. He's not wrong. The restaurant had shifted in a way that was hard to pin down. It wasn't louder or quieter. The music hadn't changed. The lighting was the same. But something in the atmosphere had turned like a room where someone has opened a window, and the air suddenly moves differently. People were looking at each other more, talking to each other more. Not about Hannah specifically, or at least not entirely, but about things that mattered. You could feel it, the way one honest moment in a room full of polite pretending can crack the surface and let something real seep through. At the table of 8 by the window, the man in his 60s, the one who'd watched Gregory turn Hannah away and done nothing, had gone quiet. His wife noticed. Richard, you okay? Fine. You're not fine. You've been staring at your plate for 10 minutes. Richard put his fork down. I saw what happened. When that woman came in, I saw the whole thing. We all saw it, honey. And I didn't do anything. His wife reached for his hand. He pulled it away, not in anger, in shame. I sat here, Richard said, and I watched that man tell her she couldn't sit where she'd reserved, and I thought, That's not right. And then I picked up my menu and I ordered the lamb. Richard. 32 years in the Marines. 32 years of being told to stand up when something's wrong. And I sat there and ordered the lamb. You can't fight every battle. That wasn't a battle. That was a woman trying to eat dinner on Christmas Eve, and I let a kid and his dad do what I should have done. His wife was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "So do something now." Like what? Like go over there and tell her. Richard looked at her. Tell her what? Sorry, I'm a coward. Tell her Merry Christmas. Tell her she's welcome here. Tell her whatever you need to tell her so you can stop stabbing your lamb like it owes you money. Richard almost smiled. Almost. He pushed his chair back, stood up, walked across the restaurant with the stiff-backed posture of a man who'd spent 3 decades marching and never quite stopped. He approached the fireside table. Ethan looked up. Hannah looked up. Sam looked up with a forkful of creme brulee halfway to his mouth. "Ma'am," Richard said to Hannah, "my name is Richard Torres. I'm retired Marine Corps, and I owe you an apology." Hannah tilted her head. For what? For sitting on my ass while that man treated you like you didn't belong here. You didn't do anything wrong. That's exactly what I did wrong. Nothing. He straightened. In the Corps, we had a saying. The only thing worse than the man who does wrong is the man who watches and does nothing. I watched. I did nothing. And I'm sorry. Hannah looked at this man, this tall, rigid, silver-haired man, who was apologizing for a sin of omission on Christmas Eve, and she felt something she hadn't expected to feel tonight. Not gratitude. Not pity. Connection. The kind that happens when someone tells you a truth they didn't have to tell. "Mr. Torres," she said, "sit down. I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding. Sit down, have some wine. The couple at table 12 sent us more than we can drink." Richard looked at Ethan, who shrugged. "I stopped being in charge of this evening about an hour ago." Richard sat. Sam extended his hand across the table. "I'm Sam. I'm 9. My dad gave away our table." Richard shook the boy's hand with the seriousness of a man accepting a medal. "I'm Richard. I'm 67, and I should have given away mine." "It's okay," Sam said. "You're here now." Richard Torres, decorated combat veteran survivor of 2 wars, a man who had not cried since 1994, felt his eyes burn. "Yeah," he said. "I'm here now." His wife appeared behind him. "I see we're joining the party." She pulled up a chair before anyone could respond and extended her hand to Hannah. "I'm Maria. I'm the reason he's over here. Left to his own devices, he'd have sulked about the lamb all night." "I wasn't sulking." "You were absolutely sulking. Marines don't sulk. 32 years of evidence says otherwise." Hannah liked Maria immediately. She had the energy of a woman who had spent decades managing a proud man, and had gotten very good at it without him noticing. "Maria," Hannah said, "do you always make your husband apologize to strangers?" "Only when he needs it, which is more often than you'd think for a man who once ran a battalion." "I ran it very well." "You ran it like a dictator with a golf habit." Sam giggled. Ethan poured wine. And just like that, the fireside table, the one that was supposed to seat 1, then 2, then 3, now held 5 people, none of whom had known each other 2 hours ago. The conversation turned the way conversations do when strangers realize they aren't really strangers at all. Maria asked Hannah about her work. Hannah explained accessible design, how most buildings are built for one kind of body, one kind of movement, and how that's not just unfair, it's lazy architecture. "Think about it," Hannah said. "A step. One single step at the entrance to a building. To you, it's nothing. To me, it's a locked door. And nobody put it there on purpose. Nobody sat in a design meeting and said, 'Let's make sure disabled people can't get in.' They just never thought about it. That's the thing about exclusion. Most of it isn't malicious. It's just thoughtless. And thoughtlessness at scale is just as damaging." Richard leaned forward. You're saying it's a design problem. Everything is a design problem. This restaurant, the spacing between tables, the floor transitions, the height of the bar, all of it was designed by someone who never sat in a wheelchair. Not because they're bad people, because they never had to think about it. And your buildings are different. My buildings start with the question, who can't get in? And then I work backward from there. If a woman in a wheelchair can move through a building without asking for help, without waiting for someone to open a door, without being redirected to the service entrance, then I've done my job. Maria put her hand on Hannah's arm. How many buildings like that exist? Not enough. That's why the project I just signed matters. 40 units, all accessible from day one, not retrofitted, not adapted, built that way, from the ground up. Where? Richard asked. North Austin. It's a mixed-income development, some market rate, some subsidized. The whole point is that accessible housing shouldn't be a luxury. It shouldn't be something you can only get if you're wealthy enough to renovate. Ethan had been listening quietly. Now he spoke. Who funded it? Hannah hesitated. A foundation, and some private investors. It took 3 years to get the money together. 3 years. 14 pitches. 14 rejections. The market isn't there. Accessible units don't sell. You're a niche player in a mainstream market. One guy, a developer in Houston, told me to my face that accessible housing was charity architecture and that nobody would pay market rate for a building designed around wheelchairs. What did you say? I told him that 26% of American adults have a disability. That's 61 million people. And that if he thought 61 million people was a niche market, he didn't understand markets or people. Did he fund you? No. He laughed. And then he walked up a staircase to his corner office, and I sat in his lobby for 15 minutes because the elevator was broken, and nobody noticed except me. The table was quiet. But someone finally said yes, Ethan said. Someone finally said yes. A woman named Claire Nakamura. She runs a foundation in Portland. She lost her son in a motorcycle accident 8 years ago. He was in a wheelchair for 2 years before he died. And she told me, she said, I spent 2 years watching my son fight for access to a world that was built without him in mind. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm building the world he should have had. She sounds like a hell of a woman, Richard said. She is. She's also terrifying, in the best possible way. Sam had finished his crème brûlée and was now building a small tower out of sugar packets. He'd been listening in the way children listen, absorbing everything, processing it through a filter that adults have long since lost. Hannah, he said. Yeah, Sam. When you build your building, can it have a pool? Hannah blinked. A pool? Yeah. Because my apartment doesn't have a pool, and my friend Tyler's apartment has a pool, and it's not fair. Sam. She's building affordable housing, not a resort, Ethan said. Affordable housing can't have pools. Hannah looked at this boy and felt something crack open a little wider. You know what, Sam? I'm going to see what I can do about the pool. Really? I'm not promising anything, but I'll look into it. Sam pumped his fist. Yes. You just got a professional architect to redesign her project for a pool, Ethan said. I hope you're proud of yourself. I'm very proud of myself. He should be, Hannah said. Every good building starts with someone asking for what they want. The evening was deepening. The restaurant had filled completely now. Every table occupied the energy of the room, running higher than usual for Christmas Eve. The pianist had shifted from jazz to something softer, and the candles on every table threw warm light across faces that looked somehow more open than they had an hour ago. Derek appeared again. This time he wasn't nervous. He was carrying a plate. This is from Chef Rivera, he said, setting down a dish that looked like it belonged in a museum. She heard about what happened. She wanted to send this out. It's her grandmother's recipe. She only makes it on Christmas. Hannah looked at the plate. What is it? Tres leches cake, with candied pecans and cinnamon meringue. She said to tell you. Derek paused like he was trying to get the words exactly right. She said to tell you that her grandmother was in a wheelchair for the last 20 years of her life, and she never once let anyone tell her where she could and couldn't sit. Hannah pressed her fingers to her lips. Also, Derek said, Chef wants to know if you'd like to come see the kitchen after dinner. She doesn't usually invite guests back there, but she said, and I'm quoting here, any woman who can sit through what that pendejo Gregory did and still order the salmon with a straight face has earned a kitchen tour. The table erupted. Richard laughed so hard he knocked over his wine glass. Maria caught it. Ethan was wiping his eyes. Sam didn't understand what pendejo meant, but laughed anyway because everyone else was laughing. Tell Chef Rivera yes, Hannah said, and tell her she's my new favorite person. Derek grinned and disappeared. The tres leches cake was divided 5 ways. Sam got the biggest piece because, as he explained with irrefutable 9-year-old logic, I'm still growing. As they ate, Maria turned to Ethan. Can I ask you something personal? Everyone else has tonight. Why stop now? How are you doing? Really, not the version you tell people. The real version. Ethan set his fork down. He looked at Sam, who was focused on his cake, then back at Maria. Some days are okay. Some days I walk into the kitchen in the morning and pour 2 cups of coffee before I remember. Maria nodded. Richard lost his brother in 2003, Fallujah. For years afterward, he'd set an extra place at Thanksgiving. I still do, Richard said quietly. I know you do, honey. Force of habit. It's not habit, it's love. There's a difference. Ethan looked at Richard. Does it get easier? Richard didn't hesitate. No, it gets different. The weight doesn't get lighter. You just get stronger. My therapist says time heals. Your therapist charges $200 an hour. I'm free and I'm telling you the truth. Time doesn't heal anything. Time just gives you enough distance to see the wound clearly. What you do with that clarity, that's what heals. What did you do? I built things. After Danny died, I built a deck, then a shed. Then I renovated the entire basement. Maria thought I was losing my mind. You were losing your mind. Maybe. But I had a really nice deck. Hannah laughed. Then she said something that stopped the table. I tried to design my way out of it, she said. After the accident, after the firm let me go, after Marcus left, that's the boyfriend, after my friends disappeared, I threw myself into work, drew plans for buildings I had no clients for, redesigned my apartment 6 times, sketched a community center that nobody asked for. I thought if I could just keep creating, keep building, I could design a life that didn't hurt. Did it work? Ethan asked. No, because the buildings weren't the problem. The loneliness was. And you can't draft your way out of loneliness. Believe me, I tried. I have a floor plan for it. It's a terrible floor plan. What changed? Hannah looked around the table. At Richard, sitting straight-backed and soft-eyed. At Maria, who had a hand on her husband's knee. At Sam, who had chocolate on his nose. At Ethan, who was watching her with the kind of attention she hadn't felt from anyone in 3 years. I stopped designing buildings for a while, she said. And I started designing a life. A real one. Not a coping mechanism with good architecture. I joined a support group. I started going to community meetings. I volunteered at a rehab center helping other people who'd just gotten their chairs. Teaching them that the chair isn't a cage, it's a tool. The same way a cane is a tool, or glasses, or hearing aids. It's just a tool that happens to have wheels. And the loneliness got better. Not gone, better. You learn to tell the difference between being alone and being lonely. Alone is sitting in your apartment on a Tuesday night watching a documentary about octopuses and being perfectly fine with it. Lonely is sitting in a restaurant on Christmas Eve surrounded by 200 people and knowing that not a single one of them would notice if you left. I'd notice, Sam said. He said it without looking up from his cake. Casual. Factual. The way he said everything important. Hannah felt the crack in her chest open wider. Wide enough now that something was getting in. Something warm. Something she'd forgotten the name of. "I know you would, Sam," she said. Ethan reached across the table. He put his hand on Hannah's. Not the way he'd seen her touch his arm earlier, light, brief, careful. He held her hand, gently, firmly. With the quiet insistence of a man who had spent 2 years learning that the only thing worse than losing someone is never reaching for anyone again. Hannah looked at his hand on hers. She didn't pull away. "You know what the worst part of tonight was?" she said. "Gregory?" "No. The worst part was that I almost didn't come. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, in the parking lot, with the engine running, telling myself it wasn't worth it. That I'd just be sitting alone in a fancy restaurant feeling sorry for myself, that nobody would care if I was there or not. But you came in. I came in." "Why?" Hannah squeezed his hand. "Because 3 years ago, I promised myself something. In the hospital, after the surgery, when they told me I'd never walk again. I promised myself I would never stop showing up. Even when it hurts. Even when the world tells me I'm not welcome, I would show up, every single time. And tonight I showed up. And for the first time in 3 years, someone showed up for me." Ethan held her gaze. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Some things don't need words. They just need someone to hold your hand at the right table, on the right night, and not let go. Richard cleared his throat. Not because he had something to say, but because he was a 67-year-old retired Marine, and he absolutely was not going to cry in a restaurant. Maria had no such reservations. She was crying freely the way women of a certain strength cry without shame, without apology, with the understanding that tears aren't weakness. They're just honesty in liquid form. "This is the best Christmas Eve I've ever had," Maria said. "Better than 94, Richard asked. "You proposed to me in a Denny's parking lot in 94. It was a romantic Denny's. There's no such thing. I had a ring. You had a ring from a vending machine. You still said yes. I said yes because I loved you, not because of the ring or the Denny's. So you admit the Denny's didn't matter. The Denny's absolutely mattered. I've just forgiven you for it." Sam looked at Ethan. "Dad, what's a Denny's?" "It's a restaurant." "Is it as good as this one?" "It's a very different kind of good." "Is their creme brulee good?" "Denny's doesn't have creme brulee." "Then how different can it be?" The table laughed. All 5 of them. Together. The way families laugh over nothing, over everything. Over the simple, ridiculous miracle of being in the same place at the same time and finding each other funny. And that was the moment someone at the next table held up their phone and pressed record. They didn't record the whole conversation. They didn't capture Gregory's apology or Richard's confession or Sam's comment about the pool. They captured something smaller. Something that in the morning would turn out to be everything. They captured 5 people laughing at a table on Christmas Eve. A woman in a wheelchair, a single father, a 9-year-old boy with chocolate on his face, a retired Marine and his wife. 5 people who hadn't known each other 3 hours ago laughing like they'd known each other their whole lives. The video was 14 seconds long. It would be seen by 22 million people in less than 72 hours. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight the candles flickered, the wine flowed. The tres leches cake disappeared. And at the fireside table at La Maison, 5 strangers sat together and remembered what Christmas was supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not polished, not performed for an audience, just real. And warm. And exactly where they were supposed to be. At some point during the evening, Sam fell asleep against his father's arm. His head tilted sideways, his mouth slightly open, one hand still holding a crumpled napkin like a security blanket. Ethan looked down at his son and felt the full weight of the evening settle over him, not heavy, but present. The way gravity feels when you stop fighting it. "He's out," Ethan said quietly. "Smart kid," Richard said. "Knows when the party's peaked. He barely ate his dinner." He ate 2 desserts, Maria pointed out. I counted. 3, Hannah said. Derek snuck him a cookie when you weren't looking. Ethan shook his head. This kid's going to run the world or burn it down. There's no middle ground. Hannah was watching Sam sleep. There was something on her face that Ethan couldn't name, tenderness maybe, but mixed with something sharper. Something that looked like longing. I always thought I'd have kids, she said. Not to anyone in particular. To the table, to the fire, to the space between what her life was and what she'd imagined it would be. You still can, Maria said gently. I know, the doctors have told me. Everything still works. It's not the body that's the problem. She paused. It's the trust. Trusting that someone would want this life, this version of motherhood, the wheelchair version. The version where you can't chase a toddler across a playground, where you can't carry them up the stairs when they fall asleep in the car. Laura couldn't carry Sam up the stairs either, Ethan said. She was 5'2" and Sam was enormous. I carried him every time. That wasn't a failure. That was a team. Hannah looked at him. You always say the right thing. You should hear the things I don't say. They're much worse. Like what? Like the fact that I haven't been on a date in 2 years because I'm terrified. Like the fact that I rehearse conversations with my dead wife at 3 in the morning. Like the fact that I brought my son to the most expensive restaurant in the city tonight because I thought if I could give him one perfect Christmas, it would make up for all the imperfect days. Did it work? Ethan looked at Sam. Asleep. Safe. Chocolate on his chin and a smile still faintly visible on his face. Yeah, Ethan said, but not the way I expected. That's usually how it works, Hannah said. Richard stood up, extended his hand to Ethan. You're a good man, he said. Your wife would be proud. Thank you, sir. Don't call me sir, I'm retired. Call me Richard, or Rich. Maria calls me other things, but those are classified. Maria swatted his arm. Then she hugged Hannah. Not the polite kind, the real kind. The kind where you hold on for an extra second because you're not ready to let go. If you ever need anything, Maria said. Anything at all, you call me. She pressed a card into Hannah's hand. You carry business cards to Christmas dinner? Hannah asked. I carry business cards everywhere. I'm a realtor. We're genetically incapable of not networking. She handed a card to our waiter at our anniversary dinner, Richard said. He was looking for a condo. He was refilling our water. He still bought the condo. They left laughing. Richard's arm around Maria's shoulders. Maria turning back one last time to wave at the sleeping boy and the woman in the wheelchair, and the man who had started the whole thing by standing up from his chair. The restaurant was thinning now, tables emptying. The pianist playing something slow and quiet, the kind of music that sounds like a good night. Derek had stopped hovering. Gregory had not reappeared. The kitchen was winding down. Hannah and Ethan sat at the fireside table, Sam asleep between them, the last of the wine catching the light. I should get him home, Ethan said. You should. Santa has to come. I still have to assemble a Lego set. The instructions are in Danish. Lego instructions are pictures. The pictures are in Danish. Hannah smiled. The real one. The one she'd found tonight and wasn't planning on losing again. Ethan? Yeah. Thank you. For the table. For the evening. For... She gestured at everything and nothing. For standing up. You don't have to thank me for doing what anyone should have done. That's the thing. Anyone should have done it. But you did. There's a whole room full of anyone, and you were the one who stood. Ethan picked up Sam carefully, one arm under his knees, one arm behind his back. The boy's head lolled against his father's shoulder. He weighed nothing. He weighed everything. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. One more. Then I'm charging. Can I call you? The question sat between them. Not heavy, not loaded, just honest. Hannah looked at this man holding his sleeping son on Christmas Eve, This man who had given away his table and his evening and parts of himself that he hadn't shared with anyone in 2 years. And she knew with the certainty of a woman who has rebuilt herself from the ground up that this was not pity. This was not charity. This was a man who had recognized something in her the way she had recognized something in him. Two people, two broken things, two cracks that fit. "You better," she said. Ethan smiled, and it was the kind of smile that changes a face not brighter or wider, but deeper, the kind that reaches the eyes and stays. He turned toward the door, then he stopped. "Hannah." "Yeah." "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Ethan." He walked out of La Maison with his son in his arms, and the first real warmth he'd felt in 2 years burning quietly in his chest. Hannah sat alone at the fireside table. The fire was lower now, the logs collapsed into glowing embers, the heat softer. She picked up her wine glass, took the last sip, set it down. Then she pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. Scrolled to a name she hadn't called in months, hit dial. It rang 3 times. "Hannah." The voice was groggy, surprised, worried. "It's 11:30. Are you okay?" "I'm okay, Dora." "Why are you calling me at 11:30 on Christmas Eve?" "Because I needed to tell someone." "Tell someone what?" Hannah looked at the fire, at the empty chairs, at the table that was supposed to be for 1 and ended up being for 5. "I showed up tonight, Dora. And someone showed up for me." There was a pause. Then Dora, tough, practical, unsentimental Dora, who had spent 3 years teaching Hannah to fight her way back into the world, said in a voice that cracked just slightly at the edges. "Good. Now go home and get some sleep. We have work in the morning." "It's Christmas." "Muscles don't take holidays, neither do I." Hannah hung up. She sat for 1 more minute. Just one. Feeling the warmth of the fire, and the weight of the evening, and the strange, unfamiliar sensation of a night that had broken her open in all the right places. Then she turned her chair and rolled toward the door. Gregory was standing at the host stand. He looked up when she passed. "Ms. Miller," he said. "Merry Christmas." She stopped. Looked at him. This man who had tried to hide her and ended up revealing everything. "Merry Christmas, Gregory," she said. "I'll see you next year." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a dare. It was a promise. She rolled through the doors and into the cold December night, and she did not look back. The video hit the internet at 6:47 a.m. on Christmas morning. The woman who recorded it, her name was Jessica Yoon. She was 34, an orthodontist from Dallas. Visiting her parents, posted it to her Instagram with a simple caption. "Watched a man give up the best table in the restaurant so a woman in a wheelchair could have the Christmas Eve she deserved. Humanity isn't dead, it's just quiet sometimes." By 8 a.m., it had 4,000 views. By noon, it had 200,000. By the time Ethan woke up on Christmas morning to the sound of Sam tearing open wrapping paper with the violence of a small tornado, his phone had 93 missed notifications. He ignored them. It was Christmas. It was. The Lego set had been assembled at 2 a.m. The instructions were, in fact, not in Danish, but they might as well have been, and it was sitting under the tree looking vaguely like the spaceship it was supposed to be, and absolutely like something that might collapse at any moment. "Dad? Dad? Wake up." Santa came. Santa needs coffee. Santa doesn't need coffee. Santa has magic. Santa runs on magic. Dad runs on caffeine. They're basically the same thing. Sam was already surrounded by torn paper and ribbon. He'd gotten the spaceship a set of walkie-talkies, 3 books he'd pretend to be disappointed about, and then secretly read under the covers, and a new pair of basketball shoes that he'd been not so subtly hinting about since October. "Dad, these are the ones. These are the exact ones. How did Santa know?" "Santa has his ways." "Did you tell him?" "I might have sent a letter." "You wrote a letter to Santa." "It was more of an email." Sam was already trying to put the shoes on. Wrong feet first, then right feet, then standing and jumping and declaring them the greatest shoes in the history of shoes. "Can I call Mom's phone?" Sam asked. The question hit Ethan the way it always did, square in the chest. Laura's phone was still active. Ethan paid the bill every month. He couldn't explain why exactly, except that canceling the number felt like canceling her. Sam called it sometimes. Not to talk, just to hear her voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Laura Cole. I'm probably chasing a toddler or hiding from one. Leave a message and I'll call you back when the chaos subsides." Sam had been 4 when she recorded that. He was the toddler. He didn't remember being chased, but he remembered her voice. That was enough. "Yeah, buddy," Ethan said. "Go ahead." Sam took the phone to his room. Ethan could hear him through the door talking to his dead mother's voicemail the way other kids talk to their friends. "Hi, Mom. Merry Christmas. I got the shoes. The spaceship is kind of wobbly, but Dad tried really hard, so don't be mad at him. We had dinner at the fancy restaurant last night. Dad gave away our table to a lady named Hannah. She's in a wheelchair, but she's really cool. She designs buildings. She's gonna put a pool in one. I told her to. You would have liked her, Mom. She laughs like you. Not the same laugh, but the same. I don't know. The same feeling. Okay. I love you. Tell the angels Merry Christmas. Bye." Ethan stood in the hallway, his hand over his mouth, his eyes closed, his body doing that thing it did when grief and love and pride all showed up at the same time and fought for space in the same heartbeat. His phone buzzed again, then again, then again. He picked it up. The first text was from his sister Karen. "Why are you on the internet?" The second was from his college roommate Dave Bro. "You're famous. Call me." The third was from a number he didn't recognize. "Hi, this is Andrea Weiss from KVUE News Austin. We'd love to speak with you about the video from La Maison last night. Please call at your earliest convenience." Ethan stared at the phone. Then he opened Instagram, which he hadn't used in months, and searched for La Maison Christmas Eve. The video was everywhere. 14 seconds of 5 people laughing at a table, Jessica Yoon's caption underneath. And then the comments. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. "This is what Christmas is about. I'm not crying, you're crying. Someone find these people. The restaurant should be ashamed. Give that man a medal. Who is the woman in the wheelchair? She looks so happy." Ethan put the phone down, picked it up, put it down again, picked it up and called Hannah. She answered on the second ring. "Merry Christmas," she said. "Merry Christmas. Have you been on the internet this morning?" "I've been on the internet for 3 hours. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing since I woke up." "How many messages?" "I stopped counting at 200. My college roommate texted me. My physical therapist texted me. My ex-boyfriend texted me." Marcus. Marcus, the one who couldn't see a future with this version of me. He sent a heart emoji, 1 heart emoji, after 12 days in the ICU and 2 years of nothing. A heart emoji. "What did you say?" "Nothing. Some messages don't deserve answers. They just deserve to sit in your inbox and think about what they've done." Ethan laughed. Then he got serious. "A news station called me. KVUE. Channel 7 called me. And the Austin American-Statesman. And someone from a podcast I've never heard of called Humans Being Human." "Are you going to talk to them?" Hannah was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Are you?" "I don't know either. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was just trying to do the right thing." That's exactly why it became a statement. Ethan sat down on the couch. Sam came running back in, wearing one basketball shoe and holding the other one like a trophy. "Dad, who are you talking to?" "Hannah." Sam's face lit up. "Tell her Merry Christmas and ask her about the pool." "Sam says Merry Christmas and he wants to know about the pool." Hannah laughed. "Tell Sam I'm working on it. And tell him I said Merry Christmas. And tell him—" She paused. "Tell him thank you for seeing me last night." Ethan relayed the message. Sam nodded solemnly, as if he'd been personally acknowledged by a head of state, and returned to his Lego spaceship to reinforce the wing that was already sagging. "What do we do?" Ethan asked. "About what?" "About all of it. The video, the calls, the attention. We don't have to do anything. We didn't ask for this." "No, but it's here." Hannah was quiet again. Longer this time. When she spoke, her voice had shifted, not softer, but more deliberate. The voice of a woman who was thinking like an architect, seeing structures and things other people only saw as chaos. "Ethan, what happened last night matters. Not because of you and me. Because of what it exposed. Gregory didn't do anything unusual. He did what hundreds of hosts do every night at restaurants all over this country. He made a judgment call based on a wheelchair, and he redirected a human being to a lesser table because it was easier than making room. That happens every day. It just doesn't usually get recorded." "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that if people want to talk about last night, maybe we should let them. Not for us. For the 61 million. The 61 million. Americans with disabilities. The ones who get the table by the kitchen every single day, and nobody films it, and nobody stands up, and nobody sends a bottle of wine." Ethan leaned back, stared at the ceiling. Laura would have known exactly what to do. What do you think she would have said? She would have said, "The universe doesn't hand you a microphone by accident, Ethan. If people are listening, say something that matters." Smart woman. The smartest. Then let's say something that matters. They agreed to talk to KVUE together. One interview, joint, on their terms. The reporter Andrea Weiss showed up at Ethan's apartment on the 27th. She was professional mid-40s, the kind of journalist who'd covered enough human interest stories to know when one was real and when one was manufactured for clicks. This one was real. She could tell within 30 seconds. Hannah arrived first. Sam opened the door. "Hi, Hannah. Do you want to see my spaceship?" "More than anything." "It's structurally unsound." "Where did you learn that phrase?" "From you, last night. You said the restaurant's floor plan was structurally unsound for wheelchair access." Hannah stared at him. "You were listening. I'm always listening." Ethan appeared behind Sam. "He is. It's terrifying. Come in." Andrea set up in the living room. A camera operator, a sound technician, and Andrea herself. She'd agreed to their conditions, no ambush questions, no sensationalizing, and Sam could leave whenever he wanted. "Whenever you're ready," Andrea said. Ethan and Hannah sat side by side on the couch, not touching but close. The kind of close that says we've been through something together without needing to explain what. "Let's start with the basics," Andrea said. "Ethan, what made you stand up?" "My son." "Your son told you to?" "Not in so many words. He asked me why no one was helping her, and I didn't have a good answer. And when you can't explain to your kid why the world is being unfair, you've got two choices: lie to him or fix it. And you chose to fix it." "I chose to try. I didn't know if it would work. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that my son was watching, and that the man he saw in that moment was the man he'd think I was for the rest of his life." Andrea turned to Hannah. "When Ethan offered you the table, what went through your mind?" "Honestly, suspicion. Suspicion. When you've been in a wheelchair for 3 years, you learn to be suspicious of kindness. Because kindness from strangers usually comes with strings, or pity, or the expectation that you'll be grateful in a way that makes them feel good about themselves. I didn't want to be someone's charity story." "What changed your mind?" "He didn't feel sorry for me. He was angry for me. There's a difference. Pity looks down. Anger looks across. He looked across." Andrea scribbled something in her notebook. "The video has been seen by millions of people now. What do you want them to take from it?" Hannah leaned forward. "I want them to see the empty table." "The empty table?" "The one Gregory tried to put me at. The one by the kitchen. The small one. The one with the draft. That table exists in every restaurant, every theater, every hotel, Every office building in America. It's the table where they put you when they don't want to deal with you, when your body or your chair or your condition makes them uncomfortable. I want people to look at that table and ask themselves, have I ever put someone there? Have I ever moved someone aside because making room for them was inconvenient? Because that's what Gregory did. He didn't hate me. He just didn't want to rearrange the furniture. And Ethan, what do you want people to take from it? I want them to know that standing up isn't hard. It's not heroic. It's not brave. It's just a decision. You see something wrong and you decide to do something about it. That's it. That's the whole thing. The hard part isn't the standing. The hard part is admitting that you've been sitting down. The interview aired 2 days later. It ran for 12 minutes an eternity in local news. Andrea had fought her producer for every second. She'd won because the footage was undeniable. Not the 14-second clip. The interview itself. The way Ethan and Hannah looked at each other when they talked. The way Sam wandered into frame holding a Lego spaceship and announced to the camera that Hannah was going to build a pool. The way Hannah talked about accessible design not as an abstract policy issue, but as a daily grinding personal battle that 61 million Americans fight in silence. The segment ended with a quote from Hannah that Andrea had almost cut because it made the camera operator cry, and they had to reshoot. "People ask me what I want," Hannah said, looking directly into the camera with the unshakable calm of a woman who had survived everything the world had thrown at her and was still here. "I don't want ramps. I don't want accommodations. I don't want special treatment. I want to walk into a restaurant and be treated like I already belong there. That's it. That's all any of us want, to belong where we already are." The interview went national within 24 hours. CNN picked it up, then ABC. Then the Washington Post ran an op-ed titled "The Empty Table: How One Christmas Eve Exposed America's Accessibility Crisis." Then the disability rights organizations got involved. Then the restaurant industry associations. Then the politicians, because politicians can smell a popular cause the way sharks smell blood. La Maison issued a public statement. Professional, polished, full of the right words in the right order. "We deeply regret the experience Ms. Miller had on Christmas Eve. La Maison is committed to providing an inclusive dining experience for all guests. We are implementing comprehensive accessibility training for all staff and reviewing our seating policies to ensure nothing like this happens again." Margaret Chen drafted it. Gregory didn't contribute. Gregory, in fact, hadn't been seen at the restaurant since Christmas Day. Margaret called him on the 29th. "Gregory, I need you to come in." "Am I fired? I need you to come in." "Margaret, just tell me." "I'm not going to fire you over the phone." "So you are firing me." Margaret paused. "I'm going to give you a choice. Come in and hear it." Gregory arrived at La Maison at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The restaurant was empty, chairs stacked on tables, the fireside table bare, the kitchen dark. Margaret sat at the bar with a cup of coffee and a folder. "Sit down," she said. Gregory sat. He looked 10 years older than he had on Christmas Eve. He hadn't shaved. His tie was absent. His shirt was wrinkled in a way that would have been unthinkable a week ago. "I've watched the interview," Margaret said. "I've read every article. I've fielded calls from 3 news outlets, 2 disability advocacy groups, and a lawyer who's monitoring the situation, whatever that means." "I'm sorry, Margaret." "I know you're sorry, but sorry doesn't solve the problem." "What's the problem?" Margaret opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots, reviews, social media posts, comments, all about La Maison, all from the past 5 days. "The problem," she said, "is that you turned this restaurant into a symbol. People aren't talking about our food, Gregory. They're not talking about our wine list or our holiday menu. They're talking about the man who told a woman in a wheelchair that our best table wasn't for her. That's our brand now. That's what people think of when they hear La Maison." Gregory stared at the screenshots. His own face wasn't in any of them. The video hadn't captured him, and neither Ethan nor Hannah had named him in interviews. But his words were everywhere. "This table isn't for the disabled." Quoted, re-quoted, hashtagged, printed on protest signs that a disability rights group had brought to the restaurant's front door yesterday. "I was trying to protect the restaurant," Gregory said. "The spacing in the fireside section." "Gregory, stop." He stopped. "I measured the spacing this morning. 31 inches between tables 4 and 5. A standard wheelchair is 26 inches wide. That's 5 inches of clearance. Not 2. 5. You lied. To me, to yourself, and to her." Gregory said nothing. "Why?" Margaret asked. "And don't give me the logistics answer. I want the real one." Gregory stared at the bar, at his hands, at the place where his tie should have been. "Because I was afraid," he said. "Of what? Of it going wrong. Of her bumping into something. Of a scene. Of someone complaining that their dinner was disrupted. Of... I don't know, Margaret. I've been running this room for 11 years, and I've never had to think about this, and suddenly she's there, and I didn't know what to do, and I panicked, and I said the worst possible thing in the worst possible way." "You didn't panic. You defaulted. There's a difference. Panicking is doing the wrong thing in the moment. Defaulting is doing the wrong thing because it's what you've always done. You've been moving people like her to lesser tables for 11 years. She wasn't the first. She was just the first one someone filmed." Gregory's face crumbled. Not dramatically, not cinematically. The way a face crumbles when the person behind it finally stops holding it together. "I know," he said. "I know that." "Here's your choice," Margaret said. "Option 1, you resign. We issue a statement. You disappear. Everyone forgets your name in a month. And option 2. Option 2 is harder. You stay. You apologize publicly. Not the corporate version, the real one. You sit across from Hannah Miller and tell her to her face what you told me just now, that you were afraid and you defaulted, and you've been doing it for 11 years. And then you help us fix it. Not just the training, not just the policy, the culture. You help me rebuild the way this restaurant treats every person who walks through that door. Why would you want me to stay?" Margaret took a sip of her coffee. "Because firing you makes this story go away. And I don't want it to go away. I want it to change something. And the best person to change it is the person who broke it." Gregory sat with this for a long time. The restaurant was silent around him, the tables empty, the chairs stacked, the fireplace cold. "She said she'd see me next year," he said. "What?" "Ms. Miller. When she left on Christmas Eve, she said, 'I'll see you next year.' She didn't say it like a threat. She said it like a promise." "Then don't make her break it." Gregory looked at Margaret, at the folder, at the empty restaurant where he'd spent 11 years perfecting the art of control and had lost it all in a single sentence. "Option 2, he said. Margaret nodded. "Good. Now go home, take a shower, and put on a tie. We've got work to do." Gregory stood, walked to the door, stopped. "Margaret." "Yeah." "How do I apologize for something like this? How do I make it enough?" Margaret thought about this. Then she said something that Gregory would carry with him for the rest of his career. "You don't make it enough. You make it real. And then you spend the rest of your time here proving it wasn't just words." He left. The door closed behind him. Margaret sat alone in the empty restaurant, drinking her coffee, staring at the fireside table. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed a number from one of the articles. "Ms. Miller, this is Margaret Chen. I'm the general manager at La Maison. I know you've been through a lot this week, and I know you don't owe us anything. But I'm wondering if you'd be willing to come back. Not as a guest, as a consultant. We're redesigning our entire accessibility approach, and I don't want to do it without someone who actually understands what it means." There was a long pause on the other end. Then Hannah said, "I charge by the hour." "I'd expect nothing less." And I want the fireside table. Permanently reserved. 1 night a month. For anyone who needs it. Anyone who needs it. Anyone in a wheelchair. Anyone with a walker. Anyone with a cane. Anyone who has ever been told that the best seat in the house isn't for them. 1 night a month, that table belongs to them. Margaret smiled. Done. And Gregory? What about him? He stays. He faces this. He doesn't get to resign and pretend it didn't happen. He's already chosen to stay. Good. Then I'll work with him. You'd do that? After what he said? Hannah's voice was steady, clear. The voice of a woman who had designed buildings and redesigned her own life and was not interested in revenge when reconstruction was possible. People are like buildings, Margaret. When something's broken, you don't tear the whole thing down. You find the fracture, you reinforce it, you make it stronger than it was before. Gregory isn't a bad foundation. He's a cracked one, and I know how to fix cracks. Margaret leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. When can you start? After New Year's. I've got a housing project to break ground on. The one in North Austin. You heard about it. It was in the article. 40 units, accessible from the ground up. 41 now. Sam convinced me to add a pool. Margaret laughed. The kid from the video. The kid from the video. He's 9. He's relentless. He's going to be president or a professional hostage negotiator. There's no middle ground. Ms. Miller. Hannah. Hannah, thank you. Don't thank me yet. I haven't sent you my invoice. They hung up. Hannah sat in her apartment, her phone in her lap, looking at the wall where she'd pinned the plans for the North Austin development 3 years ago. 14 rejection letters were pinned there too, behind the final approval letter, hidden but not discarded. She kept them the way Richard Torres kept an extra place at the Thanksgiving table. Not out of habit. Out of love for the version of herself that had survived every single no. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Sam wants to know if you're free for New Year's Eve. He says he's making reservations somewhere with good creme brulee. I told him 9-year-olds can't make reservations. He told me I'm wrong about everything. He might be right. Hannah typed back, tell Sam I'm in, but I'm choosing the wine. Deal. He also wants to know if you can teach him to draw buildings. I can teach him to draw buildings. Fair warning, he draws like his father. Which is to say badly. I've worked with worse. She put the phone down, picked up a pencil, pulled a blank sheet of drafting paper toward her, and Hannah Miller, architect, designer of buildings and of second chances, began to draw. Not a building this time. A table. A round table. Big enough for 5. With space on one side where a wheelchair could fit without anyone having to rearrange anything, without anyone having to ask, without anyone having to prove they belonged. She drew it in clean, precise lines. Then she wrote underneath it in the small, sharp handwriting of a woman who was done asking for permission, the fireside table, reserved for everyone. The drawing stayed on Hannah's drafting table for 3 days. She looked at it every morning. The round table. The wheelchair space built into the design like it had always been there. The words underneath, reserved for everyone. She'd drawn it on instinct late at night, the way she used to draw before the accident, fast, certain, without second guessing. It was the first time in 3 years her hand had moved across paper without hesitation. On the morning of December 30th, she rolled over to the table, picked up the drawing, and pinned it to the wall next to the North Austin plans and the 14 rejection letters. Then her phone rang. Hannah, it's Claire. Claire Nakamura. The woman who'd funded the North Austin project. The woman who'd lost her son. The woman who'd said, I'm building the world he should have had. Claire. Merry belated Christmas. I've seen the video. Everyone's seen the video. Everyone's seen a 14-second clip of people laughing. I've seen the interview. I've read every article. I've talked to 3 people on my board this morning, and I'm calling because we need to talk about something. Hannah's hand tightened on the phone. In her experience, we need to talk about something, from a funder, meant one of 2 things, more money or less money. There was no in between. Okay, Hannah said. Talk. The North Austin project, 41 units. 41. Sam insisted on the pool. I know about the pool. I love the pool, but 41 units isn't enough. Hannah went still. What do you mean? I mean, my board watched that interview and 3 of them cried. Actual tears, Hannah. These are venture capitalists and real estate developers. They don't cry. They don't even blink. And 2 of them called me that night and said the same thing: we need to do more. More as in bigger. More as in, I have 2 additional investors who want in. More as in, we're not talking about one development in North Austin anymore. We're talking about a model. A scalable, replicable model for accessible housing that can be built in every major city in Texas. Hannah didn't speak. She couldn't. The words were stuck somewhere between her brain and her mouth, caught in the traffic jam of a woman who had spent 3 years begging people to believe in her work and was now being told they wanted more of it. Hannah, you still there? I'm here. I'm just... How many units? Phase 1, 200. Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. Phase 2 if Phase 1 performs 500 across the state. 500. 500 units designed by you, funded by us, accessible from the ground up, no retrofits, no afterthoughts, no table by the kitchen. That last line hit Hannah in a place she didn't expect. Claire knew exactly what she was doing. Claire always knew. Claire, I don't have the team for that. I'm one architect working out of my living room. Then build a team, hire people, open an office. You've been designing alone for 3 years because nobody gave you the resources to do it differently. I'm giving you the resources. What you do with them is up to you. What's the catch? The catch is that you have to move fast. The 2 new investors saw the media attention, and they want to ride it. Attention fades, Hannah. You know that. We have a window, maybe 6 months, maybe less. If we can break ground on the Austin site by March and announce the expansion by April, we keep the momentum. March. That's 3 months. Is that a problem? Hannah looked at the wall, the plans, the rejection letters, the drawing of the table. No, she said. That's a deadline. I'm good with deadlines. I know you are. That's why I bet on you. They hung up. Hannah sat in her apartment, her heart hammering her mind, already racing through floor plans and zoning codes and structural requirements and ADA compliance matrices and the 1,000 tiny details that turn a dream into a building. Then she called Dora. It's 7 in the morning, Dora said. 500 units. What? Claire Nakamura wants to expand the project. 500 units across Texas. Accessible housing at scale. She has the funding. She has the investors. She wants me to design all of it. Silence. Then Dora said, I need you to repeat that because I think the phone cut out and I heard you say 500. 500. Hannah. I know. 500 units. I know. From the woman who was eating Christmas Eve dinner at the table by the kitchen. Technically, I was eating at the fireside table. A very nice man gave it to me. This is because of the video. This is because of 3 years of work. The video just made people pay attention. Same thing. It's not the same thing, Dora. The work was already good. The design was already sound. Claire already believed in it. What the video did was make other people believe in it too. And I'm not going to pretend that doesn't sting a little, that it took a viral moment for the world to notice what I've been building alone in my apartment for 3 years. But I'm also not going to let the sting stop me from saying yes. Dora was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Your upper body strength is going to need work. You're going to be at construction sites. I can handle construction sites. In Texas, in the summer. I survived 3 years of your physical therapy. Texas in the summer is nothing. I'm proud of you, Hannah. Don't get sentimental on me. Too late. I'm already crying. It's disgusting. I hate it. I love you, Dora. I love you too. Now go build 500 homes and call that man. What man? The man who gave you the table, the one with the kid. Don't play dumb with me, Hannah. I've been stretching your hip flexors for 3 years. I know when you're being evasive." Hannah laughed. "Goodbye, Dora." "Call him." She hung up. And then, because Dora was right about most things, and especially about things Hannah didn't want to admit, she called Ethan. "Hey," he said. His voice was warm, the kind of warm that starts in the chest and travels up. "I was just about to call you." "Why?" "Because Sam drew you a building. It has 17 pools and a slide that goes from the roof to the basement. He says it's architecturally significant." "Tell him I want to see it." "He says you can see it on New Year's Eve. He's framing it." "Ethan, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "Claire Nakamura, the woman funding my housing project, she called this morning. She wants to expand. 500 units across Texas." Silence. Then, 500. "That's what everyone keeps saying?" "Yes, 500. "Hannah, that's incredible." "It's terrifying." "It can be both." "It's definitely both. I need to build a team. I need to find office space. I need to hire draftspeople and project managers and someone who understands Texas zoning law, which is apparently written by people who hate logic. My sister's a commercial real estate agent. She knows every office space in Austin." "Your sister?" "Karen. She's aggressive, efficient, and has no filter. You'll either love her or fear her. Most people do both." "Ethan, I can't ask your family to." "You're not asking. I'm offering. That's what we do. Remember." Hannah closed her eyes, pressed her phone against her ear, felt the weight of his voice, the way she used to feel the weight of solid ground beneath her feet, steady, reliable there. "I remember," she said. New Year's Eve arrived the way all New Year's Eves arrive, with too much expectation and not enough champagne. Sam had made reservations, not at La Maison, at a small Italian place called Nonna's on South Congress, because Sam had Googled best creme brulee in Austin, and Nonna's had come up third, but also had pizza, which Sam considered a critical deciding factor. "The first two didn't have pizza," Sam explained to Hannah as she rolled through the front door. "And what kind of restaurant doesn't have pizza?" "A French one," Hannah said. "Exactly. The French are the problem again." Ethan was already seated. He stood when he saw her, not the performative standing of a man making a show, but the instinctive standing of a man who was glad to see someone. The difference was everything. "You look nice," he said. "You sound surprised." "I'm not surprised. I'm observant." Those are the same thing when you say them with that face. Sam pulled out Hannah's chair before Ethan could get to it. Removed it entirely, actually, and set it against the wall so Hannah could roll right up to the table. He did it without being asked, without making a production of it. Like it was obvious, like it was just what you did. Hannah watched this 9-year-old boy move a chair with the casual efficiency of someone who'd thought about it in advance, and she felt the crack in her chest, the one that had been opening since Christmas Eve, split wide enough to let in something she'd stopped believing in. Hope. Not the inspirational poster kind, not the kind that people stitch onto pillows and sell at Target. The real kind. The kind that hurts because it requires you to trust that something good might actually stay. "Sam," she said. "Thank you." "For what?" "For the chair." "It was in the way." "I know. That's why I'm thanking you." Sam shrugged. The shrug of a child who doesn't yet understand that the small things he does without thinking are the things that matter most. Dinner was loud and messy and perfect. Sam ordered pizza and creme brulee, simultaneously arguing that courses were a suggestion, not a law. Ethan ordered the lasagna because Laura had always ordered lasagna at Italian restaurants, and he wasn't ready to stop. Hannah ordered the risotto and a glass of wine and felt for the second time in a week like the world had decided to stop shrinking and start expanding. "I talked to my sister," Ethan said between bites. "Karen. She has 3 office spaces for you to look at. One's in East Austin, one's downtown, and one's in a converted warehouse off Lamar." "A converted warehouse?" "She said you'd like that one. Something about good bones. Your sister speaks architect. My sister speaks everything. It's her superpower, and also her most annoying trait. When can I see them? She said January 2nd. She also said to tell you that she watched the interview and cried for 20 minutes, and that you're her new hero, and she's never charging you commission. She doesn't have to. Don't argue with Karen. You'll lose. Everyone loses. I've been losing to her for 38 years. Hannah smiled. Then she reached into the bag hanging on the back of her wheelchair and pulled out a rolled-up piece of paper. "What's that?" Sam asked. "Open it." Sam took the paper, unrolled it. His eyes went wide. It was a drawing. Professional, precise, architectural. A building 3 stories clean lines a courtyard in the center with trees and benches and a path that wound through a garden. And in the corner of the courtyard, drawn with the same clean precision as everything else, a pool. "Is this real?" Sam asked. "It's the design for the first building in the North Austin project, 41 units, accessible from the ground up. And yes, that's a real pool." Sam stared at the drawing with the reverence of a child looking at a treasure map. "You actually did it." "I told you I'd look into it." "Yeah, but adults say, 'I'll look into it all the time,' and they never actually do it." "I'm not most adults." "No," Sam said, still staring at the drawing. "You're not." Ethan looked at Hannah over his son's head. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His face said everything, the gratitude, the admiration, the something else that neither of them had named yet, but both of them felt every time they were in the same room. At midnight, nonnas erupted. Noisemakers and champagne, and the old Italian owner, a woman in her 80s named actual Nonna, banging a wooden spoon against a pot and singing Auld Lang Syne in a key that didn't exist. Sam stood on his chair and blew a noisemaker so hard his face turned red. Ethan raised his glass to Hannah. "To New Year's," he said. "To new buildings," she said. "To pools," Sam shouted. They clinked, all 3, the same way they had on Christmas Eve. The boy, the man, and the woman. A family that wasn't a family yet but was starting to feel like one. On the walk to the car, Sam ran ahead, weaving between couples and fireworks, and the joyful chaos of Congress Avenue at midnight. Ethan and Hannah moved side by side, his pace matching her chair naturally, without adjustment, the way 2 people move when they've already learned each other's rhythm. "Ethan?" "Yeah. I want to tell you something, and I need you to not make a joke." "That's a dangerous request, but okay." "I haven't let anyone in. Not really. Not since the accident. I've let people help me, Dora Claire, my support group. But I haven't let anyone in. Into the real part. The part that's scared and lonely and still angry about what happened and still grieving the life I was supposed to have." Ethan stopped walking. Christmas Eve at that table something happened. Not just the gesture. Not just the dinner. Something happened to me. Something cracked open. And I've been trying to figure out what it was, and I think I finally know. "What was it?" "You saw me. Not the chair. Not the disability. Not the cause. Me. You looked at me, and you saw a woman eating dinner alone on Christmas Eve who deserved better. And you acted. Not because I was disabled, because I was a person. And that sounds like such a small thing. But Ethan, you have no idea how rare that is. You have no idea how many people look at this chair and never get past it. Never see the woman in it." Ethan's jaw was tight. Not in anger. In the effort of holding himself together. "I see you," he said. "I saw you that night, and I see you now. And I'm going to keep seeing you for as long as you'll let me." "That might be a long time." "Good. I'm not going anywhere." She reached out and took his hand. He held it. Not lightly. Not carefully. The way you hold something you've been waiting to hold and didn't know it until it was in your hand. Sam ran back to them, breathless. "Dad, there's a guy selling sparklers. Can I have one?" "It's after midnight." "That's not a no." "That's not a no," Ethan agreed, and Sam was gone again, a blur of sneakers and joy. January came fast. Hannah saw the 3 office spaces on January 2nd, exactly as Karen had promised. The warehouse off Lamar 1. It had high ceilings, exposed brick, a freight elevator, and wide doorways that Hannah could navigate without turning sideways. Karen had checked every measurement before the visit. She hadn't mentioned this to Hannah. She didn't need to. "I love it," Hannah said, rolling through the main space. "The light is incredible." "Told you," Karen said. "Good bones." "Your brother said you speak architect." "My brother says a lot of things. Most of them are wrong. But he was right about that." Hannah signed the lease on January 5th. By January 12th, she had 2 drafting tables, 3 computers, a coffee maker, and a whiteboard covered in sketches for the North Austin project. By January 20th, she'd hired a project manager named David Park, a structural engineer named Amara Okafor, and a 24-year-old recent architecture graduate named Jules Mendez, who used a prosthetic leg and had applied with a cover letter that said, "I want to design buildings for people like me. Your firm is the only one that seems to actually mean it." Hannah hired Jules on the spot. "Welcome to the team," she said. "We're small. We're underfunded. We're building something that most of the industry says can't be done." "Sounds about right," Jules said. "When do we start?" "We started 3 years ago. You're just catching up." The North Austin project broke ground on March 15th. Hannah was there, Ethan was there, Sam was there wearing a hard hat that was 3 sizes too big and holding a shovel that was taller than he was. Claire Nakamura flew in from Portland. She stood at the edge of the site watching the first excavator break earth, and she didn't say anything for a long time. When Hannah rolled over to her, Claire was holding a photograph, a young man in a wheelchair laughing on what looked like a beach. "That's Daniel," Claire said. "My son. He looks happy." He was happy. He was also angry, frustrated, brilliant, impatient, and the most stubborn person I've ever met. He would have loved this. He would have loved you. "Tell me about him." "Later. Right now, I want to watch this." They watched. The earth opened. The machines moved. The first foundation of the first building of what would become the largest accessible housing initiative in Texas history began to take shape in the red Austin dirt. Sam tugged on Hannah's sleeve. "Can I put the first brick?" "There aren't bricks yet, honey. That's months away." "Can I put the first dirt?" Hannah looked at Ethan. Ethan shrugged. "He's going to do it whether we say yes or not. Put the first dirt, Sam." Sam took his oversized shovel, scooped a clump of earth, and dropped it ceremoniously into the foundation trench. Then he looked at Hannah and said with absolute seriousness, "I'm going to tell my mom about this." "I think she already knows," Hannah said. "Yeah, but I like to tell her anyway, just in case she's watching something else." Ethan put his hand on his son's shoulder. Hannah put her hand on Ethan's. 3 people. Standing at the edge of something new. Something that started with a sentence that tried to exclude a woman and ended with 500 homes that would welcome everyone. The press covered the groundbreaking. Local news, national news. A segment on CNN that used the Christmas Eve video as the opening shot, and then showed the construction site, and then showed Hannah in her wheelchair, in her hard hat, pointing at blueprints and directing a team of people who looked at her, not with pity, not with admiration, but with the specific kind of respect you give a person who is very, very good at what they do. Gregory watched the segment from his apartment. He'd completed his accessibility training. He'd completed a sensitivity workshop. He'd sat in a wheelchair for 8 hours as part of an empathy exercise navigating a city designed for people who could walk. And he'd come home that night and sat in his shower and cried for the first time in 20 years. He went back to La Maison in February. Different. Not transformed. Transformation is a fairy tale word for a process that actually takes years. But different. He noticed the spacing between tables now. He noticed the floor transitions. He noticed the things he'd never noticed before, because he'd never had to. On the first Friday of every month, he reserved the fireside table. Not for a guest, for anyone who needed it. He put a small card on the table that read, "This table is reserved for anyone who has ever been told they don't belong. Tonight you do." The first month, a man in a motorized scooter came in. He'd seen the card on Instagram. He'd driven 45 minutes from Round Rock. He sat at the fireside table and ordered a steak and a glass of wine and cried into his napkin not because of the food, but because no one had ever reserved anything for him before. Gregory served him personally, not because Margaret told him to, because he wanted to. "Welcome to La Maison," Gregory said. "Can I get you anything?" "You already got me something," the man said. "You got me a seat." On a Tuesday in April, Sam turned 10. Ethan threw a party at the house. 12 kids, a bouncy castle. A cake shaped like a Lego spaceship that was structurally unsound in the same way the original had been. Karen came. Dora came. Richard and Maria came. Richard in a Hawaiian shirt that Maria had clearly chosen for him, and that he wore with the resigned dignity of a man who'd lost that particular battle decades ago. Hannah came. She rolled through the front door carrying a wrapped box that Sam tore open with his signature ferocity. Inside was a framed architectural drawing, a building Sam's building, the one with 17 pools and the slide from the roof to the basement. But Hannah had redrawn it, professionally, to scale, with structural notations and material call-outs and a title block that read the Samuel Cole Center for Extremely Important Things. Architect Sam Cole, consulting architect Hannah Miller. Sam stared at it. Then he looked at Hannah. "You made my building real," he said. "I made it possible. There's a difference. You designed it. I just did the math." "Is the slide real?" "The slide is aspirational, but I'm working on it." Sam hugged her. Not the careful hug you give someone in a wheelchair, the hug where you keep your distance and lean forward awkwardly. He threw his arms around her neck and squeezed with the full-body commitment of a 10-year-old who has decided that this person belongs to him. Hannah held him, closed her eyes, felt the weight of a child in her arms for the first time, and understood with a clarity that hit her like a wall that this was not the life she'd planned. This was better. That night after the party, after the kids had been picked up and the bouncy castle deflated and the cake destroyed, Ethan and Hannah sat on the back porch. Sam was inside building something with his new Legos, the sound of clicking bricks drifting through the screen door. "I need to tell you something," Ethan said. "Last time I said that you couldn't make a joke. Same rules. Same rules. Go ahead." Ethan looked at his hands, then at her, then at the sky which was doing that thing Texas skies do in April, going wide and purple and endless. "I was dead," he said. "Before Christmas Eve. Not physically, but everything else. I went to work. I came home. I took care of Sam. I did the grocery shopping and the laundry and the parent-teacher conferences, and I kept the house clean, and I kept my son alive, and I told myself that was enough. That surviving was the same as living. It's not. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I thought I'd used up my share. Of happiness. Of love. Of whatever it is that makes a person feel like their life is more than just a series of obligations they're too responsible to walk away from." "Ethan, let me finish, please." She nodded. "Christmas Eve when Sam told me to do something I almost didn't. I almost stayed in my chair. I almost told him that it wasn't our business. And if I'd done that, I would have taught my son that seeing something wrong and doing nothing is acceptable. And I would have missed you. I would have missed all of this." He gestured at the porch, the house the sound of Legos through the screen door, the woman sitting across from him in the chair with wheels that he'd stopped seeing months ago. "Laura left me notes," he said, "in my pockets. In my shoes. Little pieces of paper that said things like, 'You're doing better than you think.' I found the last one in December, in my winter coat. It said, 'Spring is coming. I promise.'" Hannah remembered. He'd told her that story on Christmas Eve. "I think she was right," Ethan said. "I think spring came. I just didn't expect it to come in a wheelchair." Hannah laughed, cried. Both at the same time, the way you do when someone says the exact thing you needed to hear in the exact way you needed to hear it. That's the most beautiful and most ridiculous thing anyone has ever said to me, she said. I'm aiming for both. You hit both. He leaned forward. She leaned forward. And in the space between them, the space that had been closing since Christmas Eve, inch by inch, conversation by conversation, shared meal by shared meal, they kissed. It was not a movie kiss. It was not choreographed or perfect or accompanied by swelling music. It was two real people with real grief and real scars and real lives choosing each other with their eyes open. Through the screen door, the sound of Lego bricks stopped. "Dad, are you kissing Hannah?" Ethan pulled back. Hannah covered her mouth. "Go back to your Legos, Sam." "I knew it. Tyler owes me $5. "You bet on this." "Tyler said it would take until summer. I said spring. I win." Hannah was laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Ethan dropped his head into his hands. Through the screen door, Sam was already on the phone with Tyler, collecting his debt with the efficiency of a Wall Street broker. "Your son," Hannah said, "is the most terrifying human being I've ever met. He gets it from his mother. He gets it from both of you." They sat on the porch for a long time after that, not talking, not needing to, listening to the sound of Lego bricks and a boy's laughter and the wide Texas night settling over a house that had been quiet for 2 years and was starting slowly to fill back up with sound. 6 months later, the first tenants moved into the North Austin development. 41 units, all accessible, all occupied within 3 weeks. The waiting list for Phase 2 was 400 names long. Hannah sat in the courtyard on move-in day watching families carry boxes through wide doorways and roll down smooth hallways and press elevator buttons that actually worked. A woman in a wheelchair younger than Hannah, maybe 25, rolled past the pool and stopped. "Is this real?" she asked. "It's real," Hannah said. "There's a pool. There's a pool. Inaccessible housing. Inaccessible housing." The young woman looked at Hannah with an expression that Hannah recognized because she'd worn it herself in a restaurant on Christmas Eve when a stranger offered her a table. Disbelief. Giving way to something that felt impossibly like belonging. "Welcome home," Hannah said. On the wall of Hannah's new office, the warehouse off Lamar, now filled with drafting tables and whiteboards, and a team of 7 architects who were designing the future of accessible housing in Texas, there hung a single drawing, the original. The one she'd made late on Christmas night, a round table, big enough for 5, with space for a wheelchair, and underneath it, in small, sharp handwriting, the fireside table, reserved for everyone. People asked Hannah in interviews, in speeches, in the quiet moments after long meetings, what had changed her life. They expected her to say the accident, or the recovery, or the moment Claire Nakamura wrote the check, or the moment the video went viral. She always said the same thing. A man stood up. That was it. That was the whole story. Not a grand gesture, not a revolution, not a policy change, or a viral moment, or a check with a lot of zeros. A man stood up. And in the space he made in that small, simple, ordinary act of standing, a woman found her seat. Not at the table by the kitchen. Not at the quiet corner where nobody has to look at you. Not in the back, or the side, or the shadow. At the center of the room. In the warmth of the fire. Surrounded by people who saw her, not her chair, not her injury, not her limitations, but her. And the table held.